Pauper Podcast.
Welcome everybody to the episode 1 of, I forget.
Common sense.
Thank you. It's not common anymore.
Apparently, my co-host has none. Just kidding.
Your host, Ryan, or Rai, or whatever you want
Or
to
as
call
I call him, Brian.
Anyway, this is my co-host, sidekick, Pearson. No, I'm kidding. You have an equal opinion and place here. All right, enough goofing off. I just wanted to get right into it this week. We're looking at the July 31st league results today.
Woo!
And I just wanted to go over them a little bit with you guys so I can help answer that question for all those with the burning desire to know what deck to take this week to the store to beat on their local nerds with. And I'd say there's a pretty well-rounded this week, actually. We got a Boros Aggro. These are all 5-0 decks. Boros Aggro, Burn, Elves, Mono Blue Delver, Mono Green Aggro, Mono White Heroic. That is my budget deck of the week, I would say. Mono White Heroic is a really good deck. For those of you who don't want to spend a lot of money, you can get right now, as of August 2nd, 2019. The Mono White Heroic is sitting at $42 or 12 tickets if you're playing online. That's really cheap for this format. Only cheaper than that would be like a red deck wins kind of thing, which is right below that. But we'll get into all the decks. There's also white. We got Jeskai. We got then a 4-color, and then a 5-color. That's probably just Tron. Blue-red Delver, blue-red green, blue-black green. Yeah, Tron. Okay, so no, I guess those are all just weird, janky decks. Probably Snogo. Top 10 cards of the week right now are Counterspell at number 10. 16 copies being used out of all the decks I just listed off. Anyway, number 9 is Hydroblast. Number 8 is Core Skyfisher. Number 7 is Pyroblast. Number 6 is Electrickery. And then we're just going to go Prophetic Prism, Lightning Bolt, Molesrifter, Relic of Progenitus, and Arkham's Astrolabe at number 1, being used in 44.44% of the decks. 32 copies out of 17 5-0 decks. So, I just want to delve into some of these jankier brews. We're all familiar. Most of you listening to this show should be familiar at this point with Boros Aggro, Burn, Elves, Mono Blue Delver, Mono Green Aggro, Mono White Heroic, Tron, Scred, which is, they're calling it Blue Red Delver, but I imagine there's some Scred in there. If not, then maybe they just cheaped out on the land. Because it's $111. It's one of the most expensive decks they do.
Boros, Elves, and Tron.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Red. This one's just simply titled R. Okay, by Rodeo. This one, it's a Goblin deck. Why couldn't you just name it Goblins, man? We got 4 Foundry Street Denizen. Whenever a red creature enters the battlefield under your control, he gets +1/+0 until end of turn. There's 34 creatures in the deck, so that's a pretty good start. And he's only 72 cents for his an entire playset, if you don't know him. Goblin Bushwhacker, another great addition. That one's got the red kicker, and if you pay the kicker when he enters, then all creatures you control get +1/+0 and gain haste until end of turn. So that's really awesome. Goblin Cohort, that's a 1-red 2/2. You can't attack unless you played a creature spell this turn. Bushwhacker's a 1/1 for 1 red. Just red. I don't. Anyway, we got 4 Jackal Familiar. It's 1 red, 2/2. He can't block or attack alone. Mog Conscripts, same thing as the Goblin cohort for those. 4 Burning Tree Emissary, you can spend red or green. You spend red or green like twice. And you get a 2/2 that gives you a red and a green mana when it comes into play. Mud Brawler cohort. He's a 1 and a red for a 1/1 haste. It gets +1/+1 as long as you control another red creature. Okay. And then we got Valley Dasher 2/2 for 1 and a red. He's a haste and attacks each turn if possible. Goblin Heel Cutter. He's got a dash cost of 2 and a red, or you can play him for 3 and a red. He's a 3/2. Whenever he attacks, tap target creature, or target creature can't block his turn. Might as well say tap target. Well, no, it's not the same thing, but still. Then they're running 2 Chain Lightning, 3 Goblin Grenade, and 4 Lightning Bolt. And 17 Mountains. And the sideboard's 3 Electricity, 3 Flame Slash, 2 Flaring Pain for those fog and frog loops that we like to see in Tron and Tortured Existence lately. Smash the Smithereens. It's in there for Affinity and Arkham's Astrolabe, which is not in this deck. Sparksmith.
We're journeying over.
Deals X damage to target creature and X damage to you, where X is the number of goblins in play. For, Old Crusher probably. That'd probably be the one thing that Sparksmith is really in there for. And 2 Molten Rain for Tron, of course. But those are also good on Snowland. Sometimes. Not usually, but... Flame Slash, that's straightforward damage. I feel like if they were running 17... Snowlands, they might as well be playing Scrud there, but they don't have 17 Snowlands, so they just have 17 mountains. And that is Red, or R as it is titled, by Rodeo. Not bad. Goblins, I would say, for those with the burning question, okay, we're in under the 10-minute mark. Sorry I've been blathering a little bit about this recent league result, but I'd say, if you're looking to pick up a cheap deck, you could run that red deck I just read off, or you could run the mono white heroic or mono green aggro. Those are all 3 budget friendly $40 decks. It looks like we're into the era of where decks are going to pretty much be costing you about $100 to run. But that's probably because of Arkham's Astrolabe and Snowlands being about $1 a piece, depending on where you get them. But I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent there, and I apologize. What would be your deck pick of the week this week, Pearson? What would you choose to take to a tournament based off the league results we're looking at here today?
Most people are playing Scred pretty much without calling it Scred. So, if you can't beat it, then join it. So, maybe look into playing Scred, or testing out your decks against it, at least, considering it's
24 decks, 11%,
24 decks. Wow.
11% of the meta. Only just about 1 out of 10 people at your local game store is probably going to be playing the Scred deck.
Yeah, and it's really cool how Pauper's so diverse, with the meta,
Yeah, and some would argue that, Arkham's Astrolabe's making everything just... But, I mean, the first deck we read to you guys was just red goblins, and there was no Scred in that deck at all. Now, this deck runs 4 Core Skyfisher, 2 Seeker of the Way, 2 Archaeomancer, 1 Custody Squire. That was a really cool one. If you guys aren't familiar with that one, it's got Will of the Council. It's from Conspiracy. I know, one of the ugly redheaded stepchild of Magic the Gathering. But for 4 and a white, you get a 3/3 flyer that when it enters the battlefield, starting with you, each player votes for an artifact, creature, or enchantment card in your graveyard. Return each card with the most votes, or tied for the most votes to your hand. So you're going to just basically pick whatever card you want, and then your player has to agree with you or give you another card out of their graveyard too. So that just is busted. Anyway, Mole Drifter, there's 3 copies of that. 2 copies of Brainstorm, 3 Ephemerate. That's another really good card right now. If I've said it before, and I'll say it repeatedly until it gets banned. If it gets banned, I don't want it to be, and I don't even have a discussion about that. So let's move on.
Yeah.
Flame Slash, Lightning Bolt, 1 Flame Slash, 2 Lightning Bolt, 2 Ponder, 4 Preordain, 4 Scred, 4 Counterspell, 1 Remove Soul. It's a counter target summon spell for 1 and a blue. Yeah, I guess, it's pretty good. 2 Mystic Remora. I like that. I may have to try this one out myself. 4 Ash Barrens, 9 Snow-Covered Island, 2 Snow-Covered Mountain, 2 Snow-Covered Plains, and 2 Terramorphic Expanse. Also, then they're running, it's called, on Goldfish, they're calling it white, blue, red, green, because there's 2 copies of Weather the Storm in the sideboard. I mean, with Arkham's Astrolabe, I love it. I saw a Boros list that was running Mystic Remora in there, too. It's like, you can just splash whatever you want in there, as long as you got at least 4 copies of Astrolabe and maybe some Prophetic Prisms. This guy's not running any, or this sample deck, it doesn't have any. Anyway, the rest of the sideboard is 2 Electrickery, 3 Hydroblast, 3 Pyroblast, 1 Red Elemental Blast. I guess they didn't have the 4th Hydroblast or Pyroblast. I don't know, whatever. The 4th Pyroblast. They had to go and put a Red Elemental Blast. Swirling Sandstorm, 1 copy of that. 1 Oblivion Ring, and that's the deck. It's not bad. I'd say the decks I mentioned and your pick for the week would have a pretty tough matchup, but that's a tough call. I mean, aggro versus control. It's a classic matchup, and it's just a race, But control, you usually play with your life as a resource until you get set up, and then it's all over, so that's a good pick. Wow, we've seen some black decks showing up in the meta again, but not much. None from this week, actually. Let me get back to the results here. But, so we've got our picks for the meta decks you should play if you're playing meta net decks. However, I have a new Secret Obsession pet deck that I want to try that's kind of rogue at this point, but it won't take long well, it's not really rogue because it's basically Acid Trip, but with the inclusion of Core Skyfisher. I'm sorry, not with the inclusion of Core Skyfisher because it's always run Core Skyfisher. With the inclusion of Akram's Astrolabe, and if Springleaf Drums in there. I saw it on Reddit. Just in passing, I don't remember whose post that was, and I'm sorry. I'm just throwing that out there. I think that's also a good choice. You could do like an Acid Trip deck because Tron is always going to, I think, show up to the party each week. So if you get paired against Tron, that would feel so good if you have an Acid Trip deck. So that would be, we should have each pick a net deck and then have a rogue pick of the week. Do you agree with my pick, or do you think there's something better than that for a rogue deck this week?
For a rogue deck, I don't know. I mean, me and you played Acid Trip a few times. I didn't think it was really that strong.
Well, what
I'm
about
looking
the
at
one
this.
You're currently playing?
Okay, so I most recently was playing Tortured Existence, Golgari Tortured Existence. It was pretty badass. Reality Acid, yeah, that could take down Tortured Existence. Fair enough.
Yeah. But could Tortured Existence take down Scred?
I feel we should do that. We should play that out.
It will.
I feel like Scred would probably take it, but
I also want to see what the Acid Trip, the new Acid Trip deck would look like against Scred. But anywho, so it's this week. It's a little tougher to answer. We're still figuring out the format, But that's my recommendations. These are our recommendations. If you have options, go for one of those. If you don't, you could always go buy yourself Mono White Heroic for $40. They're running 4 Defiant Strike, 4 Acron, I can't pronounce it, or Arcoin.
Arkham's Astrolabe.
No, not that one.
Oh, a Crow and Skyguard.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Deathblade Elite, 3 of those, 3 Seeker of the Ways, 4 Laguna Band Trailblazer, 4 Emerge Unscathed, 4 Mutagenic Growth. That's going to cost you a little bit. If you're the budget player, it does. This one has 4 Relic of Progenitus in the sideboard, but you could literally put Tormod's Crypt in there. It's essentially the same and not as expensive, I'm pretty sure. I mean, you're going to spend a little bit of money on the Mutagenic Growth. You don't necessarily have to have 4 Graveyard Hate cards in the sideboard, but...
Well, it is good, though. Like, it's...
Especially with Heroic.
Relic is a really strong card. I feel like it's worth getting a playset.
This particular one runs 3 copies of Brilliant Hallow I've never seen before. It's well, I've seen it before. I haven't seen it ran in the list before, but it's a Urza Saga card. 1 in a white. Enchanted creature gets +1/+2. When it's put into a graveyard from play, return Brilliant Hallow to owner's hand. It's like Rancor. Dude, now that's a highlightable card. Brilliant Hallow. I was going to say my card pick of the week is Tainted Strike, which is also a really good card. It's an instant, 1 black, and it gives your creature +1/+0, and your creature has Infect. Instant. You know. Oh, by the way, you're taking 10 Infect. With your sitting there with your 100 and some odd life from playing Weather the Storm 100 times. Go ahead and die to Infect. I only have to hit you 10 times with that. So, Tainted Strike is a really good card. Brilliant Hallow. If you're trying to play white and you don't want to use green, boom, there's your Rancor, basically. That's not bad. Those are highlightable cards. I did that one on accident, but I definitely had Tainted Strike on my list. And I'm sorry that came up so late in the game. We're going to do the highlight and the deck of the week. I think we're going to move that to the face of our programming. And I promise that we'll fix the intro song. I hate it too, okay?
We understand that.
Mother can't stand our intro right now. Anyway, so the deck, just so you guys know, has 4 Hyena Umbra also, 4 Ethereal Armor, 4 Cartouche Solidarity, 2 Stave Off, which is another conspiracy card. Target creature gains protection from the color of your choice until end of turn. It's a cheap card. They're 15 cents a copy right now, so that's a good one to go buy. I need to get some for myself because I've never heard of that card and don't have any. The problem therein is sometimes you can't find it at your local game store, and then you have to order online, and then the card people don't want you to order for less than $2, and you got to pay $1 for shipping, and like 4 different stores have one copy that costs 15 cents, and then you have to spend $1.85 at each store plus shipping and handling. So then you're spending like 10, 15, $20 for 4 15-cent cards. It's ridiculous. Anyway, rant over. The rest of this deck has been read off except for the sideboard. It's 3 Devout Harpist. That one's from Urza's Legacy. It's a white for a 1/1. Tap, destroy target creature enchantment. That's not too bad. And seeing as how remove enchantments
Disenchant?
No.
Remove enchantments.
God, that card is so good. From Legends, it's 1 white. And it's kind of confusing. It's more wordy, I think, than Oubliette. So, if you know the basis of the card is it puts all your enchantments back in your hand and destroys the rest. So that's really good against Oubliette. Anyway, Gaze of Justice, 1 white. This is a Time Spiral card. This one's interesting too because I've not run across this one often and do not remember it from my days in Time Spiral. 1 white. Sorcery. As an additional cost to play Gaze of Justice, tap 3 untapped white creatures you control. Okay, so it's got a convoke of 3. Remove target creature from the game. Alright, so for 1 white, that's baller. 1 white, 3 convoke, and you can remove target creature from the game, and it has a flashback of 5 and a white. You may play this card for its flashback cost and any additional cost, so you would still have to tap the 3 convoke. But yeah, not a bad card. I like Exile myself. That's a good old card. It's 2 and a white. I'm giving you guys away too many cards this week. I gotta shift gears back to low gear on this, but Exile is a great one that got downshifted from rare to common. I'm not sure where or when. Sorry, but it's basically an unmake for 2 and a white. Instant remove exile target creature from the game. Alright, so anyway, but that card's not in this deck. This deck runs 2 Gutshot, 3 Lifelink, and then the 4 Relic of Progenitus, which could be replaced with Tormod's Crypt, or Nihil Spellbomb, or, I mean, if you had, like, Arkham's Astrolabe in the deck, and you were running Snowland, I don't know, that would be kind of ridiculous, though.
Yeah.
I was going to say, you could use, like, Crypt Incursion, or there's a handful of other graveyard hate cards, but... yeah, graveyard hate is essential, because if you've never played against a Tron deck and had them loop a fog over and over each turn,
or Tortured Existence.
Yeah, Tortured Existence can loop a Spore Frog. It's basically the same thing, and it could be Moment's Peace.
And you exile in the graveyard messes with.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Exile in the graveyard is powerful these days, and it's almost like I want to brew a rogue deck that just plans for these things. It's like got artifact hate, graveyard hate,
burn hate.
You gain lots of life, and you're hitting people with infect. That would be an essential deck. Maybe it has like shadow creatures, so like total evasion because no one plays shadow. I don't know. I guess if everybody started listening to this program, then everybody would be playing what I think everybody should be playing, and then it would be weird. But I'm digressing off that. I'm sorry. Anyway,
so I just thought of something random, but has anyone ever played a Slivers game against another Slivers deck?
That would not be fun.
Imagine being matched up at like your local game store's tournament.
I actually had that happen to me 3 weeks in a row where I was playing. I don't remember what the decks were, but it did like a blue-red. It wasn't Scred. It was like an Izzet, and it was just like Izzet creatureless. And it was pretty nice, actually. And that deck had a lot of Exclude and Think Twice, and Burn, I think, was in there. But it's slow. The timer was my enemy. Yeah. But anywho, I ended up playing against another Izzet creatureless, and I don't know. I played Infect, and then I was against Infect. It just, I don't know. That just really messes with you if you're not like good at the mirror too. Which we're trying to investigate that further, because it's one thing to have a library of all the net decks, all the meta decks, and have those available to play or to sleeve up, if you will. All of my Pauper playables are sleeved, and so I can just go. I grab. I have them all alphabetical order, so then I can just go Arkham's Astrolabe, Bastion Inventor, Cabal Interrogator, Defiant Strike.
Yeah, also I failed to mention earlier, obviously the newer slivers have slivers you control versus all slivers. Yeah, and that's another thing. Ryan has, of course, pretty much all the Pauper cards that you could want to play with. I'm still building up my collection, so we do some mirror matches, but other decks we're not able to do mirror matches of and test those out. But one day.
So, but it's good to be to think about that when you're building your deck. If it's a meta deck, then what are you going to do when you're playing Boros versus Boros? What will you do if you're playing Tron and you're both fog looping each other? How do you get out of that scenario? So you have to think about these things. I mean, let's talk about sideboard options for you this week for meta decks. The biggest issue you got is Scred, So you'd be good to run yourselves a play set of Arkham's Astrolabe, a play set of Red Elemental Blast, a play set of Blue Elemental Blast. But you could also do like Active Volcano. That's a really good one for. It's a red card, and it does basically the same thing that Hydro Blast. I'm sorry, I get my Pyro and Hydro
and Red Elemental.
I get them a little confused. Okay, Active Volcano. Choose one: destroy target blue permanent, or return target island to its owner's hand. It's pretty neat. There's a blue one. The card is called Flash Flood. It's one blue. Choose target red permanent or target mountain, and return it to its owner's hand. Or return target mountain to its owner's hand, or destroy target red permanent. But those are not as powerful as the blasts because you can't counter target spell. You just destroy target permanent. But it's a nice little extra oomph. And another little hidden gem from the past that we just got from Unification. So you can really, really hate on red and blue, and that's what Scred is basically. The main cards in that deck, again, are, Scred, Lightning Bolts, Counter Spells, but they're running the Ephemerates now. They got Arkham's Astrolabe and Prophetic Prism in there, and they're using Ash Barrens, relying heavily on those to get to their snow-covered mountain usually, and there's usually only like one or two. So with that knowledge, yeah, you want to use, if you go against Scred, you definitely want to sideboard in your Land Hate. Land Hate is a good thing to have, 2 copies at least, because then you can take out both their mountains. Because most Scred lists I've seen and ran usually just have 2 mountains. So that's a big weakness there. But don't forget to run some copies of Red Elemental Blast. That's choose one to counter target blue spell or destroy target blue permanent for 1 red mana. You're going to need Astrolabes, or you're just going to need to play, is it creatureless maybe? Yeah, am I making it really confusing now for you guys? Yeah, maybe, but I'm getting you prepared mentally for what your potential opponents, the big problems in the room are going to be. The other big problem in the room is going to be Boros aggro. That can be pretty easy to deal with, though, if you can let them do all their effects and do all their spell casting and stuff. You want to sideboard in Mystic Remora against that deck also, by the way, because they just do too much, and they're not going to stop doing what they like to do just so you can not draw cards. And they're not going to pay 4 mana either.
No.
Okay? So that's how we deal with Boros, in my opinion, along with life gain. And, just throw a Weather the Storm in your deck, in your sideboard, because that's good. I mean, you just play that and you gain a bunch of life after Boros has done all kinds of crap. And then you draw a bunch of cards, and so you'll be better off than Boros if you do that. Tron is a little bit more of a precarious situation, but the bounce effects, you're going to need to have some sort of, if you had those, Pearson, what's that blue flying guy with, he's like a 2/2 for 1 and 2 blue
Stormbound
flying.
Geist.
Yeah, he's undying, can only block creatures with flying. Stormbound Geist. And, that's a good one to deal with Tron a little bit, at least, because what they do is they'll just stop you from making any combat damage. So you want to have some sort of way to do direct damage. They're going to have Denroba Horus a lot of times, too, then they make you pick up your stuff and discard a card. So you want a way to instantly deal with, a creature coming into play before it comes into play, maybe just, remove Soul or something like that. you could run something to deal with big clunky creatures like Ulamog's Crusher, Gurmag Angler, Denrovahara, all these big clunkers. You got to look out for them. So that could be answered easily with like Remove Soul or Doomblade. I mean, one or the other. If you got Arkham's Astrolabe, that shouldn't be a problem. It's only one color cost. There's a lot of options there, actually. I mean, Bogles hasn't seemed to be a problem, but they might show up. It's still pretty safe to run a Bogles deck in this meta, I think. But I could be wrong. There is definitely a lot more hate with, like, steal or remove enchantments. That would be detrimental for Bogles. If you had any copies laying around. They're $2 a copy if you could find them. So anybody wants to mail me 4 copies, I'd be glad to take some. Or 8 copies, actually, because, hey, we're trying to do mirror matches. Anywho, if you're running Weather the Storm in your sideboard, though, you can deal with burn and a lot of other problems. You want to have Electrickery in the sideboard. So your sideboard should basically be red and blue cards, if you haven't figured that out yet. Except for Weather the Storm, which that's basically a red or a blue card if you're running Arkham's Astrolabe and Prophetic Prism.
And Relic of Progenitus and Spellbomb, Tormod's Crypt, all the graveyard hate is also good to have in your
that's
sideboard.
definitely a good one too. So yeah, I think we've said enough, and sorry to leave some of you guys working the grind that just love to listen and think about Pauper. I'm going to just leave you with your thoughts now. Until next week. And
also, our episode, our introduction that we did yesterday or a couple of days ago or whatever, that was first, so we can only get better from there. It was a little bit, glitchy at times, and we apologize, but...
Yeah, we had some issues with the editing on this Podbean. I thought it was Podbeam. Podbeam. I thought it was Podbean. With an M on the end, but it's Podbean. Anywho, I want to say thank you to all the Redditor commenters that gave us some good advice on what to hear about. Please feel free to chime in with your comments on this page or our YouTube page once this becomes re-uploaded. And we have a Patreon, and we'd appreciate a little help. It would feel so good.
Even if it's only $1, anything helps, and we super appreciate it.
And you'll get your name in our YouTube credits for our YouTube series. We're going to be doing more YouTube videos, but less YouTube videos, I think, and more podcasts. Unless you guys, the crowd, decide that you like us. I don't know. We're going to play it by ear either way. So hit our Patreon right now. It's patreon.com/PooperDicks. That's our YouTube channel name is youtube.com/ I assume it's that PooperDicks. But either way, find us on YouTube. It's pretty easy and sticks out there. It's POOPERDIX. That is actually a play on words for many of you who may not know, because we play Pauper decks, and it sounds like Pooper Dicks. I'm going to play some Pooper Dicks. So anyway, a lot of people don't get that reference, and we may end up changing that, like we mentioned in our first episode. Until then, it's kind of funny, and we like to play on words. Also, we're going to focus on budget stuff with our name being Common Sense. It seems like, common sense. Anyway, you guys have a great week, and we will get at you next week.
Thanks for listening.
Over and out.